Welcome and good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us for today's guest webinar, Change Starts From Within, Live a Life That Matters. My name is Kathleen Edwards, and I'm the Education Manager at Family Councils Ontario. We're happy to have Claudia Arnowitz join us today and share some great techniques on remaining positive as we navigate challenges. Before we hand the floor over to our special guest, we'd like to cover a few housekeeping items for our session today. So all attendees will be muted. We also ask that everyone joining us mute the microphones on their end to ensure we can all hear clearly without any background noise. In the interest of time, we ask that questions be typed into the chat box located in the drop-down panel. And so we'll take brief pauses throughout the session to read them out loud for feedback from Claudia. We'll try our best to get to as many as possible during the session. So I will be checking the chat box, and as they kind of come up in that natural time in the presentation, I'll ask them to Claudia, because I know she really wants to make this an interactive session. And a PDF copy of the presentation and the recording of this session will be made possible and made available. Now that we've covered all of those items for housekeeping, it's my pleasure to turn the floor over to Claudia.
Thank you very much, Kathleen. I really appreciate it. And thank you for everybody that signed in and that is taking time of the day to be here with us. To me, it's an honor to be able to be part of Family Councils Ontario. I have known you for quite a while and done courses in conflict resolution for you, and I know really close the work that you do. And I am also very aware of the challenging times that this has been for everybody, and especially for those of you that work in long-term homes or that have family members there. And I think that's why maybe this time to just, take an hour to get some fresh insights, to feel just have a good time for an hour, and hopefully you can take a tool that will help you to find the positive things around us, even in these challenging times. So a little bit about me. First of all, I tend to speak fast, and especially when I'm talking to myself in this new era where I don't have anybody in front of me. So if I do speak fast, can you just put it in the chat and let me know? And I will make sure to do it slower again. My name is Claudia Arnowitz. I like to start by saying that I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a sister, I'm a daughter, I'm a friend, because that's part of who I am. And professionally, I come from a background of public health where I was a senior manager for 20 years in the healthcare sector. And now I am now a professional development coach and a relationship coach. 10 years ago, I had cancer and I had to be at home for 2 years. And when it was time to try to figure out a new normal, I decided to completely change my life. I went back to study to become a certified coach. I went back to study relationships and communications, and I went back to study positive psychology. And it's a combination of all of this that I want to share with you today. I really want to invite you to ask as many questions as you want. We are going to be monitoring the chat. I will stop in different times as I switch topics to ask and answer your questions, and for you to really get as much as possible from this presentation. So what are we really going to be talking about? Oops, okay. What we're going to be talking about is what has the science of positive psychology learned in the last 20 years. So until 20 years ago, psychology was an area that studied, why were people not doing well? What were people doing wrong? And how could they bring them to be more normal, to be more like everybody else? 20 years ago, psychologists started asking different questions. And the questions they started asking is, why are some people more resilient than others? Even with the same characteristics, they tend to do better. Why are some people happier than others? Why are some people living a more fulfilled life? Why are some people having better relationships? And by asking those questions, they said, if we could do the things that they were doing, could we possibly pass from an okay life or not so good life to a really good life? So I'm not going to be directing this talk about, what do you do when you're clinically depressed or you have a mental illness or you're really, really having a rough time, although they still work. I'm not talking about, so how do I do it so I can really have a happier life? How do I do it so I can be more resilient during these challenging and hard times? Are there any things that I can do to help myself? And I like to say, the change starts from within, because actually before we can change anything of our reality outside, we need to start thinking about ourselves and the way we see it and the perspectives and the self-talk that we're having. Changing ourselves, then it completely changes everything else that is around us. So it's also not about being happy all the time. Positive psychology has grown immensely. I am completely in love with it, but it's not what we are sorry saying. We're supposed to be happy all the time. That's not at all. We're not supposed to be happy all the time. It's just a way to be happier, to have nice moments during the day, to find some kind of joy, to be able to smile more. But it's not about being happy all the time. I'm also only going to be talking about things that are in our personal control. There are things that others can change for us, but it really starts from the things that I can change inside of me. Because, after all, we're the ones responsible for our own life. So let me, if it was an interactive talk, which is usually the way that I do it, I would be asking you a question, and it would be, is the cup half full or half empty? And I would wait a little while. Most of you would say it's half full, because that's the way we've been taught, right? You're supposed to see it's almost half full of water. You're not going to see where the water isn't there. But the new perspective actually is telling us that it's always completely full. It has half air and half water, and so is our life. Our life is always completely full, and it has good things and it has bad things. Sometimes there's more of one than the other, but there is always something good in our lives that we can focus on to help us through the difficult times, and hopefully also to grow it more so that we have more of that and not only the challenge and difficulties that the life has for us. So, I'm going to share with you the tips that positive psychology has studied to really understand, so why are some people able to focus more on that positive side in our lives and not the negative side? So I'm going to put a screen, and I'm going to ask you, and then you can put it in the chat, those that can. I'm going to put a picture, and I'm going to ask you the following question. And I want you to pay attention only to the following question. What are the geometrical shapes that you see? How many geometrical shapes do you see in the picture? And I'm going to give you 30 seconds. By geometrical shapes, I mean any type of geometrical shape. The more you can find, the better. Okay, so here we go. How many geometrical shapes do you see? Any type of shape, as many as you can find. Can you please pay attention and see how many geometrical shapes you're seeing? Okay, how many did you see? I don't know if people can put it in the chat. Well, I can't see the chat anyhow, but
okay. I'm seeing 8, 32, 30, 36, 12, 30 plus, 8, 9.
Fantastic. Okay, so a lot of numbers. I've seen people tell me 120, 64, because it really depends how you divide them. But what if I was to ask you, what was the color of the door to the house? Did you even pay attention that there's a house there? And what was, if I was supposed to ask you, how many people were sitting in the yellow bus? What was the time of the clock? And here is the thing. If you were trying to really count the geometrical shapes, you probably didn't even pay attention that there was a school bus, or that there was a house, or what time was it on the clock, or what type of pizza it was. Because here is the thing, the questions that we ask are the answers that you find. So I don't know about you, but when I'm trying to buy a new car and I'm thinking about a certain kind, I suddenly see it in the street all the time. And I remember when I was pregnant, suddenly I could see all the other pregnant ladies around me. But when I'm not looking for those things, I don't see them. And the idea here is that it's exactly the same for the positive things in our life. If we don't make an effort to see them, our mind will go to the negative. It's just the way a human mind brains work, for some more than others, but that's how it works. And we really have to start asking ourselves, what are the positive things in our life? Or changing what we're asking, what is working? What is important here? What brings me happiness? And if we change the questions of what is working instead of what's not working, we suddenly start finding it more. Okay? Then I would do another exercise here for you, and I would actually would have put a picture of me when I had cancer, and I would tell you my story. And I would tell you my story in two different ways. I would have told you my story with the same facts, but in a very depressing, bad way. And then I would tell you my story, trying to look at the good things in the story. Because the way we tell our story, the way we think about what is happening to us, actually changes the way we feel about the same story. Because actually our reality is two different parts. It's objectively what happens. So for most of you right now, objectively, it's been a really difficult time, and those, our elderly families are having a hard time. But subjectively, how we perceived it, did we feel out of control? Did we have a lot of stress? How we managed it, what we were focusing on, at the end, makes us feel that our reality is a completely different thing that we would have thought. So I'm going to ask you, how are you telling your story? And it can be your life story, or it can be just the story of the last 3 months. Can you tell it to yourself differently? What would happen if you look at some of the good things that have happened today? Some of those silver linings that may be happening today. And this is something that happens not only right now. I remember one of my clients, and she came to me and said, I'm totally confused. I don't know what I want to do. I'm unhappy. And after we worked on her on clarifying what her values and what was important to her, and the way she was telling her story, and really embracing those values in the way she was telling her story, she suddenly found clarity. At the end, the most important thing is that she actually didn't change objectively, not her work, not her family, no anything about her. What she changed was her perception of how she was seeing it. And for her, it completely changed. And I think this is really important. So can you tell your story differently? Can you see it? Can you add other things that you were forgetting to tell yourself? Here is another concept. I have 3 young adult children. Very happy that they're all home again because of the pandemic, actually. That's for me the silver lining of all this. And I remember my daughter in high school, she would tell me, Mom, I need to know exactly what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And I would tell her, no, Emma, you don't really need to know what you're doing for the rest of your life. She said, yes, Mom, everybody knows that. What do you choose now for 12th grade? You're going to know what you're going to study in university, and that's what's going to happen for the rest of your life. But we all know better. Life is actually a lot of ups and downs and turnarounds and go back and find a new path, and you never know where you're going to be ending. And suddenly you realize that instead of arriving at B, you even maybe arrived at C. And what is important to understand is those people that are happier and more fulfilled are those that learn to find joy in the mix of all this chaos, of all these new paths, of all these ups and downs, because that's life. Life is what happened to us while we're busy planning for the future or regretting the past. But what is important is actually what is happening now. And it's a combination of having a vision, but also learning to enjoy the present moment and finding what I can get hold of and what I have control over in that present moment. Because life is actually the process. The other and last concept before I go into very detailed tools that you can use. This comes from Dr. Barbara Fredrickson. She's one of the leaders in positive psychology, and I really like it. So I'm going to take 2 minutes to explain it to you. What it's called the positivity ratio. And what they found is that what makes people happy is not only the good things in their life, but it's actually the ratio between good things and bad things. So I'm not talking about the people that are clinically depressed, because that is a totally different story and different things that need to be done. I'm also not talking about those to the right, which we call, completely detached from reality. Those that think that they need to be happy all the time and everything's fantastic. I'm talking about most of us that are comfortably numb and wanting to thrive and flourish. And what they found is if I had between 5 positive things happening in my life, 5 positive moments, 5 positive interactions with other people, to 1 negative interaction, to 1 negative moment, I was striving to flourish. It didn't take even that many things. So what I'm going to invite you to do next is, are there things that I can decrease the negativity in my life, decrease the things that put me down? And sometimes the answer will be yes, but others it will be no. You know, this pandemic, there's nothing I can do about it. It really is a hard time because it's completely out of my control. What is not out of my control is, can I increase those positive moments? Can I increase those positive interactions? Can I increase those things that make me smile so that the ratio between the good and the bad can be more inclined towards the positive? And that will immediately make me feel different. It's a very interesting concept. Okay, so I could talk for days about the tools we can do that and we have under our control. I chose 5, 6 randomly, not randomly. I chose them because I have tried them on myself, because I have tried them with the hundreds of clients I work with, and because I really believe they work. But most importantly, I chose them because they are in our own personal control. So I wanted to put this image for you guys to know that there's many more things here under the water, but and these are the tip of the iceberg of the tools. But those tools are completely in our control, and that's why I wanted to talk to you about them. So what am I going to be talking about? These are the 6 things I chose for you, and we're going to be walking one by one for the rest of the session. So it's talking about accepting where we are and why that is important. What do I mean by having always being a choice? The idea of appreciating what is around us. What does it mean to be human, and what does that involve? The concept of being grateful and the different exercises you can do for that. And then how do we deal with those inner critics and saboteurs and those voices in our head that tend to put us down, that we actually, all of us have? Any questions so far before I go into this?
I don't see any popping up in the chat box, but just a reminder, this is meant to be interactive. So as we go along and as Claudia speaks, if you do have questions, feel free to pop them up. Oh, how do we talk about silver linings before offending others? That's a good question.
How do we talk about silver linings before we offend others? I think by just accepting that my silver linings may not be yours, and what I can see as positive, we are different individuals, may not be yours, but I'm entitled to mine and you're entitled to yours. And I can give you the example, you know, for me, a silver lining of all these difficulties has actually been that I have my 3 kids at home. I know from other families and from friends that they're going crazy having a full house again. So what's my silver lining? It's not theirs at all, but that doesn't mean I can't see mine and enjoy mine and be grateful that I have mine. And hopefully you can share with me what might be yours, which can be totally different for you. And I hope that answers the question, but if not, let me know as we move forward. So I'm going to start with the first one. And why do I think it's important? It is very important to understand that the past is gone. That no amounts of regrets or money can change the past. It is just out of our control. And that actually the future is not here either. And that it doesn't matter sometimes how much I want to find solutions for problems that might be in the future. Sometimes problems are not there to be resolved until it's the right time. And I really learned this, you know, my father-in-law was really sick, and he lived in a building with an elevator in the 6th floor. He was already in a wheelchair, and for 2 months they were not going to have elevators because they were going to fix them. And we were really, really concerned. Actually, he died before that happened. But there was nothing we could do until the time came there that we were supposed to solve that problem. So accepting where we are is because what I control, what I change is now. And this is actually where I work with my clients and where coaching starts working is, this is where I am. This is where I find myself with the good and the bad, with what I control and what I don't. This is where we are. Now what? What can I do about it? And I really love this quote, which says, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I can change. I cannot change. The courage to change the things I can change, and the wisdom to know the difference. Because sometimes, you know, I've had conversations with clients that they're going in the same path. They're just really wanting to go straight and not changing everything, but that's out of their control. They can change that. And sometimes they're saying, so what is in my control? What is it that I can change? What other way or path can I do it so that I can move forward. But it really starts by accepting where you are. And I really have this image. Sometimes we're against the wall trying to change that wall, and because we need to go through that wall, when what we need to say, okay, so I have a wall in front of me. So can I bring a ladder and go up and then down that way? Could I make a tunnel? Or can I just go around it? What other ways? Can I just completely go in a different direction instead of just constantly trying to change the things that I can't? So it really starts by accepting where we are. The second one, which I took from Professor Tal Ben-Shahar, who's also one of the leaders in positive psychology, is this idea that we are actually always a choice, and that the most important choice that we can do is to choose to choose. Now, I know that a lot of things that have been happening to us and that happen through our life, and especially also now, are not in our choice. There's nothing we can do about it. They're out of our control. The choices, however, in small things, in the way we perceive it, in the way we act, in the way we react, and in other things, but that can really, really change what we're doing. So, because we are always a choice at every moment in our lives, you do have a choice to focus on faults or to be a benefit finder. The choice to take for granted or to appreciate the good. The choice to perceive failures as a catastrophe or to perceive failure as a learning opportunity. The choice to run away from challenges or to courageously face challenges. The choice to be cynical and sarcastic or to be open and sincere. The choice to overlook the potential or to see the potential in people around you. The choice to reject emotions or the choice to accept your emotions. The choice to be mean and dismissive or the choice to be nice and kind. The choice to overlook life's treasures in you and around you, or to be mindful of the wonder. We have big choices and small choices and small choices in our life. The big choices are who we marry, where we live, when we buy a house, what are we going to study, if we change jobs. And those are very important ones. But we actually have to make many, many, many small choices every single day of our life. And it's not only our happiness and fulfillment are attached to our big choices, they are actually also, or even more attached to the daily small choices that I was just talking about. And Tal Ben-Shahar has a book of 101 choices for a fulfilling life, which is fantastic. And they are all small choices from our every single time of where we can focus on that can make a difference in our life. And I really invite you that if you're going to take one thing, take this one. How can you choose differently of how you're reacting? Can you choose a different perspective? Can you choose to do something differently? Small things add up and can completely change our lives. We sometimes just dismiss all these small things, but that's what actually life is made of. That's what these small moments that add up that actually make the happiness in our life.
And Claudia, I do see a question right now that kind of goes along with the notion of choice. So one choice for some people, when you're experiencing a situation like we are right now with COVID, families and family councils are experiencing this alone but together. So if you are in connection and communication with others, how do you support others going through a harder time than you are without using rose-colored glasses? There's a certain amount of reality to keep people safe. So what can you do? And then does wine help?
So I'm not sure I quite understood the question, but I'll try to interpret it the way I think they asked it, and if not, they can let us know. So,
sure.
It's the choice is then how do I help others that are maybe having a harder time to feel that they're not alone and that we're together?
Yes.
I believe that it depends on what the situation, but one of them that came to my mind is by being authentic. It's by showing, wow, this is really hard, But what about also this? It's not ignoring that it's hard, because come on, what's happening in the world, what's happening with the pandemic, what's happening in long-term care and with the people that we love, and if you're working there, it's tough. The reality is that it's hard, but what can we do about it? How can we show our love? Is there any way that we can give support? Even just hearing the other person can make them feel that they're not alone. And then we can try to say, okay, so what are the few things that we control? Where can we focus on to make that better? And it's small things, but it's by being us authentic and accepting and just sometimes hearing the other person in the difficulty that they're in.
Wonderful.
Oh, yes.
Sorry, tied to, again, choice. So again, because we have the choice of how we're going to experience and respond. So some people innately choose anger and frustration when things don't go their way. How can they move forward from what they're used to?
First of all, they need to want to be able to move forward, because it doesn't matter what we wish for them. If they don't want to change, they're not going to change. That's why I call it change starts from within, because we have to do it for ourselves. But what we can offer a person that is angry and frustration is go on what we call underneath their position. Why are they angry? What's making them frustrated? Can you ask questions to get more underneath that, that just show of anger, to show empathy and to show that you're hearing them? Because you will be amazed how much sometimes that frustration and anger is because they're not feeling heard. When somebody can really feel heard, they many times immediately lower their anger, because that's human beings. That's what we need. We need to be seen and we need to be heard. And then maybe we can move away from that anger. So it's a lot of really good questions, really wanting to understand their frustration, and then just acknowledging, I know this is hard. I can totally get it that this is hard and frustrating for you. We're doing our best and I get it. So what is the one thing? If we can only do one thing, can I offer you this? I can't give you the other thing, but I can offer you this. And you start a conversation. So when I'm talking about choice, the choice of the person seeing that person that's frustrated and angry would be, well, I'm going to get angry and I'm also going to defend myself because, if you're angry and you're yelling at me, well, I'm going to yell back. Our choice can also be like, I'm going to show some empathy to that person. I'm going to ask open-ended questions. That's a choice. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And we could talk about many other types of choices in that moment, but that's what I'm talking about. The way I react is actually a choice that I always have.
So shifting from how others respond to a situation, when we talk about choice, is it okay to choose to allow ourselves to experience and focus on the negative? And if we do, will it help us appreciate the good even more?
Oh, I love this question because it's going to take me to the next topic I'm going to talk about, which is being human. You can choose to experience the negative, absolutely, and then you can choose to move away from it. And let me go into being human, and I hope I'm going to answer that question, and that's a very important question. So I think with that, I'm going to move forward, and if there's more questions, we can continue a little bit later. Is that okay? Okay.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, so before we go to being human, for whoever that answered that question, I will answer it. I wanted to talk about the next one, which is appreciate what is around you. And I'm going to put a video. I don't know if some of you are on the phone, so if you can't see it, I will explain to you what it is when we finish. But just pay attention to this video because I think it expresses it in the best way that I could find words for. Yep. Okay. So I know some of you are on the phone, so the video was of a little girl, like around 4 years old. She's walking with her dog, and she suddenly sees a little puddle of water, and she puts the dog down, and she goes back and forwards, enjoying and jumping into the puddle of water, and then she goes back, picks up the leash of the dog, and continues her walk. And why is this important? Because as human beings, I don't know what got into our culture that being busy was a fantastic thing. And the more, somebody says, oh, but I'm so busy. And I'm so busy. And saying busy was like saying I'm so successful and I'm doing life. And actually what we know is those people that are happier and have more fulfilling lives are those that learn to do more, to do less, not more. Those that stop to enjoy the flower that just came out, or when you're taking a shower, the hot shower, those are the things I love on our face, or my morning cup of coffee, or whatever it is for you. When was the last time, I'm seeing people walking now? Walking is when you can finally get out of your house and they're on the phone. I'm like, look at spring, look at the flowers, look at the people around you, or not people around us. And I really invite you to slow down, to do less rather than more. And I think if there's one thing, at least for me, that the pandemic gave me, was the opportunity that because there's no place to go, we're enjoying our backyard. We're just sitting down. We're actually not always doing anything. So our dinners are longer because nobody is in a rush to go anywhere. We're just sitting around the table, and it has been fantastic for me. So what are the things that you can slow down, that you can be like this little girl, just appreciate more what is around you? I know our world is chaotic, and there's a lot of challenges around us. But nature is still blooming, and nature is nature. There are some beautiful things that are happening around us, and there are some good things that people do that we don't pay attention to that we should appreciate more. And if you can look at all those things around you, in the small things, it really starts changing. So this is a quote that expresses it even more. Use your eyes as if tomorrow you will have been stricken blind. Hear the music of voices, song of birds, the mighty strains of an orchestra. Touch each object. Smell the perfume of flowers. Taste with relish, as if tomorrow all of your senses fail. Glory in all the facets and pleasures and beauty which the world reveals to you. And this is from Helen Keller. It's actually a much bigger piece where what she tells us, she asked some people that went for a walk around her house to the forest, and when they came back and they said, so how was it? They said, how can you be like that? You're supposed to see everything around you. If I could see, I could be doing all this fantastic and seeing things around you. And my personal story is I loved my grandmother, and she was very sick and she couldn't eat at the end. And when I went to see her, she would ask me, what did you eat today? And I'm like, crazy. Why are you asking me that? I can enjoy it through your eyes. I love it. Just enjoy it by just seeing how you enjoyed it. There is beauty around us, and we forget to slow down. And I really, really invite you, let's do less and pay more attention and appreciate what is around us. And here we go to what I said about being human. Being human means that we have to give ourselves permission to fully experience all of our emotions. As human beings, we are supposed to feel anger and frustration and sadness and a feeling of feeling down and not having a good day. And if we don't give ourselves permission to feel those things, it's very hard to give ourselves permission to really enjoy happiness and to feel joy and to feel peace and to feel grounded and all the good things. They both exist for a reason, and we feel them. They just come. Emotions are things in motion because they just come. I don't control how I feel, actually. I control what I do with it, and if I feel sad, I can decide and choose to cry all day or just to cry a little while or whatever's good, or to make myself go for a walk and not and change my mood. It depends on me, but I still need to feel it. And I think it's, we're all going through, it's okay to have bad days. Sometimes they're just bad days and they don't make us less of anything else. I remember very clearly when I was sick, I'm a very positive person by nature. but I had a really rough time, and I got into a severe depression, and I couldn't do anything, and I was feeling as miserable as you can imagine. And it took me a long time to accept that I could feel as bad as I was feeling and still be the positive Claudia that I'm always. So you're okay. You can still be positive and know you're going to be resilient and go and do whatever you need to do. But if for a moment you need to feel whatever you need to feel, give yourself permission for that, because it's liberating to give ourselves permission. And even more than that, if we don't give ourselves permission and we say, well, I'm not going to feel that way, and I'm not going to feel that way, it becomes even bigger. Well, I shouldn't be sad. And how can is it that I'm sad? Well, I shouldn't be sad. You become even sadder. You know, sometimes we just need a good cry, and that's okay. It doesn't mean anything. It just means that that's how I'm feeling right now. Now it's the choice what I do with that feeling. You know, it's like some people say, I want to find love. If you want to find love, you need to be able to know that you might get your heart broken. Because if you don't get your heart broken, that means that you weren't authentic, you weren't vulnerable, you weren't there for the real relationship. And that's actually the only way to find love. So sometimes feeling those negative feelings are part of feeling and getting to have those happy moments. The difference is just separating the emotions to my actions and what I want to do with them. And sometimes the action may be, I'm going to crawl into bed and that's what I feel like doing because, you know, enough for today, I'm going to try again tomorrow. And others it will be, nope, I accept that this is how I'm feeling. Now what can I do about it? And I don't know about you, but you know, like a month ago when I finally understood that we were in this pandemic for the long while, I really had some really hard days. It just really hit me. And I remember going to my kids and saying, it's not about you. I even can't stand myself right now. I'm just very emotional. Don't take it personally, but I have to give myself permission to be there for a little while before I can know what I want to do. And it worked for me. And now it's your choice. But what's important here is just to accept that we're human beings. And as human beings, we need to feel all the emotions. And I hope that answered the question that we had before. Are there any other questions?
Yes, there is. There's a great one. And I guess this builds on this current slide of being human, as well as the one where you said it's okay to say no. So if we do opt to say no, we slow down, we step away from something, especially if we recognize it's a negative situation, how do we get rid of the feelings of guilt when we are choosing to step away from those situations, or when we're saying no to something?
I love that question because guilt is one of those saboteur voices that I'm going to talk about a little bit later on, which is then ask yourself, why am I feeling guilty? Am I allowed to say no? You know, what are my values? And, you know, we were talking and we were working together. We would go back to, so why are you feeling guilty? What are your values that you're trying to honor? If you said no, is it because, you know, this is a negative thing and that you don't want to be part of and you're being empathetic and loving yourself? Did you say no so that you can say yes to other things? We can't say yes to everything. And sometimes when our gut feeling, you know, there is something in our gut. It does have a lot of neurons in our gut and in our heart and in our brain. It's trying to tell us something. We need to learn to hear it. Guilt doesn't help us because it doesn't change for the other person, and then it doesn't let us enjoy or be it that we said no. So it's knowing what are your boundaries and why you needed to say no, and what values in your life, those things that are really important to you, you were honoring. And that's why you said no. I hope that answers the question.
That sounds good. And I don't see any other questions, so I'm excited to hear the next point.
All right. So I hope everybody here is enjoying it. So let's keep on going. And I hope, you know, just let's keep on going. So the next one is about being grateful. Here's the thing about being grateful. You know, like if you would ask any person that works in the health sector, they would argue, you know, when I started as a dietitian, but you would argue, you know, you're not supposed to eat eggs. Now you are supposed to eat eggs. You're supposed to eat this. Now you're not supposed to eat that. And this is good and this is bad. But there is one thing that they would all agree on is we all should do some kind of exercise because being active is essential to our health. And it has been constant for the last 50 years and nobody will debate it. Being grateful is the one thing that every single person in positive psychology will agree. Well, that in relationships, but I won't be talking about relationships today, is the one thing that is essential to feeling happier and finding more fulfilling life. Because why? So the definition of appreciating is to be grateful, and when I'm grateful, it grows in value. Because when I appreciate the good appreciates itself. And it really is true. The more I can be grateful for, suddenly the more of those things that I find. It is amazing. So I'd like to ask you, can you think about the things that you appreciate in your life right now that you can be grateful for? Are there any happy moments that you can just say, that put a smile in my face? It is really, really an important concept. And I'm going to put you another video to explain it even more.
Look, I can be a clerk. Now my whole house is great. I can do anything good. I like my school. I like anything. I like my dad. I like my cousins. I like my aunt. I like my husband. I like my mom. I like my sister. I like my dog. I like my hair. I like my haircut. I like my stuff. I like my rooms. I like my whole house. My whole house is great. I can do anything good.
Yeah.
I can do anything good.
Okay. I know you're going to tell me, I've seen this video 150 times, and while I was watching, I was going with my hand, yay. For those on the phone, this is a little girl, maybe 4 years old, standing in front of a mirror, doing this exercise that probably her parents told her she had to do, and she's saying all the things that she loves, and she's dancing. I have seen it 150 times, and I just love it, and I feel like dancing together with her, because even though she may have been told that she needed to do it, she's enjoying it. And she's learning to see the good. And that's what we're trying to do. Because sometimes, sometimes your smile can be the source of your joy. Sometimes your joy can be the source of your happiness, but sometimes your smile will be the source of your joy. Because sometimes we have to fake it till we make it. Sometimes we really just have to smile and see what we're grateful for so that suddenly we can feel it more. It is an exercise to change the pathways of neurons in our brain. Our brain has what we call a negative bias. It tends to remember the bad things because of evolution. And that's how our neurons connect more. And we need to create the best way I can explain it, it's like, there's the river path for water. And it'll go there because it's easier for the water to go. And by doing appreciation and everything I'm talking about, we create a new pathway in our mind to see more of the good, to find the things that make me feel good. But at the beginning, it's work. It's an exercise. And then slowly, that's where our neurons start firing. And I start feeling it more, and I start seeing it more easily. So I really want to invite you to do a gratitude journal. You've probably heard about this before. It really, really works. And here's the way it goes. So gratitude journal says, you have to choose 3 things that you're grateful for in the day. Some people do it at night. I like doing it in the morning before I get out of bed of the day before, because it just puts me in a different mood when I get out of bed. Some people have to write it down. Others, we just think it in our minds and we don't write it down. Others do it in the middle of the day. It doesn't matter. You decide where you're going to do it. But I really invite you to do it every day. 3 things that you're grateful for. And they can be small things. I can be grateful for being able to sit down and just have my cup of coffee. Yes, I love coffee. Or I can be grateful of being able to take a shower. Or I can be grateful for big things like my health. And I can be grateful because everybody in my family is healthy. Or I can be grateful for whatever you want to be grateful for. You can repeat the topic every day if that's what you feel. You can change it every day. Big or small, doesn't matter. The only thing that it counts is that you feel it again. So when I feel, when I'm thinking about I'm grateful for my health, I really say, it really feels good to be healthy. And whatever it is to you, we have to feel it. Other people prefer, instead of saying the 3 things I'm grateful for, they call it, what is my happy moment of the day? And what we're doing is the same thing. We're looking through it for the day. I used to do this exercise with my daughter. It was very funny because she would even come to me if we did something together that was really nice. She would say, Mom, this can be our happy moment of the day. What we were actually doing is training our mind to find the things that put a smile in our faces and to really force ourselves to see it. Because as you remember in the first slide, when you appreciate the good appreciates in itself. It sounds simple, I know, but it works. So please try it if you haven't. Don't give up. Make it a routine. What you're looking for is to be able to see those small things or big things that you can be grateful for. And if I can push you a little bit more, if you're grateful for something that somebody did, make sure you tell them. We're so used to seeing the bad and telling somebody, this doesn't work, and this doesn't work, and this doesn't work, and this you're doing wrong. Can we tell them, thanks, this was important to me. Thank you for doing that extra effort. Thank you for calling me. Whatever it is, it makes you feel better when you can show it to another person, and the person receiving it will also really feel good. Any questions so far about the gratitude journal?
I'm not seeing any, Claudia, but I think that it's a good strategy. There was a question, I asked the question of how can we regain the ability that girl in the video had of being grateful? Is there a specific age we lose it? And then what can we do as an adult to regain it? But I think the gratitude journal is a very concrete way to kind of start rebuilding that within our lives.
And what I love about this girl is, yes, she was told to do it, but at the end, she's really enjoying it. Another thing that a lot of people can do is what they call a mantra, or you write it in the mirror. You know, if we're having problems feeling good about ourselves, can we say something that we love about ourselves and put it in a little post-it in front of it and just say, I love myself, or I feel good because I did this. There's a lot of different things, you know, right before I do a talk, I've done so many talks by now, I shouldn't even need to do it, and I still need to do it. I need to stand firm and say, I'm good, I know what I'm talking about, I'm an expert, just be yourself, you can do it. I'm giving self-talk, I'm forcing myself to go deep and see the good inside of me before I do it. And we need to do that, and I really invite you to do it and to pay attention to the small things. But the gratitude journal is the best example I can give you. It's equal to exercise for our mental health. Okay, let's start. Okay. Then the last one is a little bit about quieting our inner critic. And here is the thing about the inner critic. I have worked with hundreds of clients. I've just had one that said, I don't have those voices. I make like little things with my hands. It's like this little devil in our head that tells us, oh, you're not good enough, and the other side is better, and why couldn't you have done it this way? You should have done it that way. And these huge voices that we had in our head. Our mind somehow, while we're growing up, creates those voices to protect ourselves. It's like a growing up mechanism to protect ourselves. The problem is that they can become really big and take over. So we know the guilt. How come you said no? You shouldn't have said no. You're not allowed to say no. We don't even know why, but the voice is there. And the first thing is just to understand where they're coming from, accept that we have them, and then I invite you to learn, and I'll be happy to talk to you later, or however you can learn how to push them down. They are part of our puzzle of our personality of who we are, but they're not the leaders, and we don't have to be those that guide every single thought that we have. So here's what happens and why we have them. So there's a negative bias. As human evolution, our brain was trained to know where, something bad was happening so that we could make sure to protect ourselves. If there was a lion or if there was a fire or if something was going to happen, I needed to remember those things to protect myself because our instinct is always going to be protection. And then they became these voices that we have in our head. And then we take it very personal. So if somebody says something, you immediately think it's about you. But maybe they're just having a bad day, or maybe they're just in a pressure, or they were talking about themselves. But we are beings to take it personally. We tend to generalize. How many times do we use or hear people saying always, never, I'm not good enough, instead of saying, I failed at this, I'm never good enough. And I always make these mistakes. And we generalize it instead of talking about specific behaviors or circumstances. And then we have all these shoulds and need tos that we think that's the way it has to be, instead of thinking, do I really want it? Who said it had to be that way? Is it really a should? Should for who? Should why? But we tend as human beings to remember all the shoulds and have tos that we were supposed to have. And the way to work with all these voices is actually by knowing yourself better. And I invite you to do the work. If you want to, write to me right after this and I'll send you a values exercise. I'll be more than happy to do it for you. I invite you also to sign up for a blog that I write about personal development and relationships, because the one coming up next week is actually about values. Values are the things that are important to me. We all have them, and they're important to me. They change over time, and they're different from one person to the other. They can also be the values that are important in a relationship. And when I know what is really important to me, I know how to act. Okay, as you can hear, I have an accent. I'm from Mexico. So my sister lives in Mexico, and she was about to have an operation. And I asked her, do you need my help? Should I plan to be there? And she said no. She had the operation, and that afternoon she called me and says, Claudia, get on a plane. I need you now. My mother can't help us. This is really hard. You need to get on a plane now. I work. I have 3 kids. You're like, she's crazy. I'm not getting on a plane. I offered before. And I hung up the phone. And then I remembered my values. For me, family is one of the main values that I have. So as you can know, it was very easy to make the decision to get on a plane and go help her, because I knew the values, the things that are really, really important to you. What is important to you? Because when our life, our actions are close to our values, we feel peace, we feel grounded. When they're incoherent, there's a lot of stress. It really triggers us and makes us feel very uncomfortable because we are not honoring those values. We also have personal strengths and qualities that we were born with. We think everybody else should be like that and should be important, but it isn't, okay? And there's different ways to figure out what are you really good at so that you can use it more, instead of saying, well, I'm not good at that and I need to just be mediocre at what am I not good. And that's actually how a lot of us, at least I grew up, which was, if you're not good at that, make sure you put a lot of attention to what you're not good at. What we're trying to teach now is, what are you good at? And make sure you use those skills in every single aspect of your life, and that you make the most out of your strengths, because that's what makes you unique. We also need to find our purpose in life, because if we have a purpose and we know how to contribute to society and to contribute to the world we're in, we tend to be happier. It just makes us feel good to know that we're making a difference. And that can be in any single way we want to see it, because it's personal. Our values, our strengths, and our purpose are personal things. And it wouldn't be fair for me not to put in here the mind-body connection. Your mind cannot be happy if you don't take care of your body. We're one machine. We are completely connected. So I don't talk about nutrition anymore, but what you eat, how you exercise, how you take care of your body affects how you take care of your mind. And if you start paying attention to your body when it says it's time to rest, it's time to take a day off, it's time to slow down, it's telling you something that you need for your well-being and your happiness. And the last one, which I love talking about, and we can talk about it the whole day, is about relationships. People that are happier have strong connections with others. Some of us need many, others need few, different types of relationships. But we need to take time and work on the relationships that are important to us, because they give meaning and purpose, and they give us connection that is so important to our well-being. Any questions so far?
Yes, there's actually one, because you just talked about relationships. So how do we navigate relationships with people close to us that sabotage positive situations or good news?
It's such a hard one to answer in just a second. But if it's good news to you, what I like to say about relationships is that you don't need to give the other side the power to decide who's the leader in the relationship. So if the good news are important to you, you enjoy them. You talk to them about however you want. If they decide it's not important, it's their problem. But we don't have to accept what the other person's feeling and we adapt to them. We can bring them to us, or at least tell them, okay, so I see you don't see that's important. For me, this is great news, and I really want to enjoy it because that's what I have control over right now. So you don't have to see it that way, but let me see it that way, because for me, it's important. It's about taking ownership about the relationship and giving to the relationship what it needs. It was very easy to say it. I know relationships are complicated, and I would need to give you a whole talk on that, but it's a tiny bit of an answer. Okay, so.
Here's another question. Do you have any, oh, sorry, there's one more that just came in. Do you have any suggestions for family councils to build stronger connections after negative exchanges or a history of arguments?
Yes, I do. And I know family councils well, and I know how complicated that can be. And there has to be a space for negative things sometimes to happen. And then we need to go back to, okay, we just shared it. We know it's, you call it out. We know it has been hard. We know that the situation, the long-term homelessness has been really tough for everybody. What is in our control? What do we have in common? What are the actions that we can take now? So it's a little bit of acknowledging that this has happened, and instead of just trying to ignore it, you call it out and you say, "This must be, whoa, this, the atmosphere right now is heavy. We can feel it. We can just breathe in together. What are we going to do about it?" But the acknowledgement part is very important. So I'm just looking at the time, so I want to summarize. What we talked about today are the importance of why we're paying attention, and that the questions we ask is going to guide the answers that we find. That the way we tell our story is very important, because the reality is actually an objective part together with a subjective component of how we see it. For some people, something can be a hell, and for the others, it can be a paradise. It really depends how you're seeing that objective situation. Some of the tools you have for what to do, just accept where you are. 2020, this is where we are. That's where we find ourselves. The question is, now what? I invite you to choose, because sometimes we are always at some sort of choice that can make a difference on that subjective part of how I see my reality. Let's do less, not more. Let's take this time this summer just to slow down, to smell the flowers, to look at the birds, to speak with someone, whatever is important to you. Let's do less, not more. And remember, we're human beings. Negative emotions of fear, of sadness, of frustration are part of us. We don't choose to feel them. Our choice is what we do with them. But we need and accept all of them so that we can feel also the positive emotions. Be grateful. Be grateful for what you have. Do a gratitude journal and show your gratefulness and your appreciation also to others. It really makes a difference. And I invite you to do more personal work. The more you know yourself, the better, more in control, and more proactive choices you can make. Life is challenging. By definition, life is constantly changing. The only constant in life is actually change. And that's going to continue happening. And it's a little bit of a dance. What do I do with these challenges and constant change? And how do I learn to adapt with it? That permits me to find also joy and clarity and fulfillment in my life. And that's actually what we're trying to do. And then, I want you to choose one thing that you want to take with you. If you want to share it with us in the chat, that would be great. If you have questions, I invite you to go to my website and sign up for the blogs that I write. It's short emails just to make you feel good when you read them. That's all I'm trying to do. And to contact me and follow me on social media, I'm here to support you. Small things make a difference, and we know we all need support right now. So I open it to questions.
I'm seeing a lot of people saying thank you, and then one of the participants, Julian, made the comment, "This is the best time to be human, to help those who need help, and take this time to understand yourself. Be kind and be patient as best one can. Be weak when you need to be weak, and you will recover."
I love that comment. So thank you very much for saying it, because I think we need to do that to ourselves. Because when we love ourselves and we show empathy to us first, that's when we can love and show empathy to others as well. And, you know, this pandemic has been tough. The changes and the things that are going on in the world has been very, very challenging. And for family councils and those that have to be involved in this area, it has been even tougher. So it is a difficult time, and we do need to be kind to us and to others before we can start finding solutions.
Another participant also says thank you, and then they like the idea of having the gratitude journal. I can echo that sentiment. When I was, after I gave birth to my daughter, I found that journaling 3 things I was grateful for, either at the start of the day or the end of the day, really helped to reframe my mindset when I wasn't feeling so good about the day or things weren't going so well. And there is a question for you.
Let me just say about the gratitude journal. Let me just tell you about the gratitude journal. I do it every day in the morning, and I've been doing it for years because I find it reminds me the type of how I want to show up when I wake up in the morning. Instead of remembering, and I'm a very anxious person by nature also, positive and anxious actually go together. And by doing the gratitude journal, it reminds me of my values and what's important to me. And it reminds me to put attention throughout the day of what I want. So I really invite you to do them. Yes, what was the other question?
And so do you suggest family councils seek help for resolving conflicts? So because people have the choice to kind of feel things differently, what if the people who choose to feel things differently really just can't ever move forward? What are some strategies that you would suggest for a family council that is in that situation, for what they could do to seek help to kind of move forward?
So I would need to give you a whole nother talk, and I know family councils, because I've been the trainer, gives training in conflict resolution, both for family members and for staff. And there we go really deep into the different tools you can use when, you know, how do you deal with somebody that's angry, and how do you deal with difficult people, and how do we manage to create a mutual conversation. So I would invite you just to, you know, write to Tiffany or write to somebody in family councils and ask for more training, because I can't answer it right now. But I think one of the things that really helps is just take a breath. Stop. You know, sometimes in the family councils meetings, it's time to say, can we all just take a breath? Let's take 5 minutes of a break. Because when we're already agitated and there's so much conflict, we can't use the part of our brain that we really want to use, that permits us to feel and be open and be vulnerable. We're protecting ourselves. And sometimes just, you know, asking everybody, let's just take a breath. Let's just take a 5-minute break. Permits everybody and the emotions to calm down before we can come back together. But I could talk for 7 hours about it. So please do reach out, because there is so much more information.
Thank you so much for that. All right, Ontario Family Council staff require support from us as well. Take the time to say thank you. It's free to say and worth millions in someone's hearts. Thank you. Yes, I agree. We appreciate hearing from family councils and family members, the good and the bad. The good is always good, just because it helps us balance out when we do get the negative. It's good to have some good as well.
And that's the positivity ratio. Remember, we need to have lots of good things in order to be able to deal with the bad ones. So don't think that to say thank you to somebody or to tell them how they made you feel good or something that you appreciate, it's not worthwhile. It really is. It makes a difference. And we can also say what it isn't, but it's important to also pay attention to what it is and say it to the other person. So thank you, family councils, for having me today.
And I do see that it is 3 o'clock, and it's time to bring this webinar to a close. We'd like to extend our thanks and appreciation to Claudia for providing us with an hour of insightful, positive thinking techniques. If you're unable to get your question, please do reach out directly to Claudia by visiting her website or social media handles that you've got there. And as well, we are recording this, and it will be posted, and the presentation and slides will also be available. We thank you all for being with us today and hope that you enjoy the rest of the afternoon. Thank you so much, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you, everybody, for being here, and keep safe and keep healthy, please.